Hi everyone, it's Jacqueline from Homeworks, etc. I'm here to show you part 3 of 5 of how to do sign painting with vinyl stencils. So today's session is going to be only about the stencils. So how to paint, some tips and tricks on painting stencils so that you can avoid that paint bleed, you get nice crisp lines. And I have a few projects that I've already base coated from yesterday, so I'm actually just going to change the camera direction so that you can see what I'm working on. So again, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to post those. I have this piece that I painted yesterday. It is got 2 coats on it already. I have not painted the backside, so I'm going to do that at the very end. This is part of the lemon tier tray kit, and so I've got all my supplies in front of me. I've already been using my paintbrushes. As you can see, my hands are full of paint. And this stencil is the fresh squeezed lemons. Most of our stencils that we have are all low tack vinyl stencil. Now, if we're doing decals or something for pillows, we would use a different vinyl. But this is a low tack vinyl. Again, it's a one-time use only, and it's got this paper transfer tape over top of it, so it helps us apply the stencils in one go, which is great. We try to size our stencils so that they fit the project. So you'll see that the size of the height of the stencil is exactly the same as the wood. So that makes it easy to line your project up straight so that you don't avoid applying the stencil crooked. And again, this is a one-time use, so you want to just make sure that you do take these steps in the application process step by step. The first part is just to make sure that you get the decal ready for application. So we've already scored it, which means we've rubbed the top transfer tape onto the vinyl. And now this is a black vinyl, which you can see kind of on this one, there's a little bit of a gap there. So I am going to just rub it lightly. I don't know if you can see this at all. And all this is doing is making sure that the centers of all of your letters, now you don't have to go too crazy. Some people grab a block or a credit card. Now that's not necessary, because what can happen is you can actually warp the stencil. So you want to try to avoid that as well. Now what I've done is just enough. You don't need to do any more unless you see that when you're removing the backing. I always remove the grid side part first. So you remove the backing and you see that this is completely clear, which is what you want. And you want all of your centers to be on the front side. So all that detail, especially with script fonts. And because this is a sticky adhesive, you want to make sure that you have full control over it, that it doesn't fall on the floor. And if you are using a paper or newspaper tablecloth to cover your surface, if this were to land on that, it would stick to it very well, and you would lose your stencil. So we want to try to avoid that. So as you can see, I've placed it in front of me, upside down, and I love this process because this lines up perfectly. And now I usually stand for this because it gives me full control over how I can apply it. And so I've already kind of mapped it out. Now I'm just measuring. Let's see if you can see this. Am I in the middle of the screen? Oh, I'm too far. There we go. So you can just take this, line it up. And again, I prefer to stand just because it gives me full control of being over top of the project. And then as you can see, it's already adhered. I don't have to rub it too hard. And again, you want it to stick, but you don't want it to stay there. It is a low tack vinyl. So that transfer tape is what helps you apply it to the wood in one go. So I'm going to try to do this. This transfer tape now, when you pull this off, you want to make sure that all of the black of the stencil now adheres to the wood. And so this is adhering very well, which is awesome. And there you go. Now I never discard of this. I actually keep it for this project. And I try to protect myself from myself because I get paint everywhere. So that little gap where there's still some wood showing, I always cover that up with the transfer tape. And that way I know if my brush goes over a little bit, I'm going to be fine. It's totally going to protect that, and I can remove that after. So that's working with MDF. And this is just another example here. This is that pine sample that I stained yesterday. And again, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to peel the backing off and then lay it flat. And now this is a complete square, which is a little bit easier. So I'm not going to stand for this. Now, once you apply it, it's kind of a one-shot deal. You might be lucky. So this one has a square, kind of squarish font, which is great. So I did remove that, but it's only because I barely adhered it. So if you're lucky enough to do that, you can, there we go. So that, because once you rub it, all of those centers are just gonna stay on your wood. And I am going to remove this. There you go. If you find that when you take that transfer tape off, it doesn't transfer completely, you can go back and rub it on some more. And so I'm happy with the way that that covered. If you see that there's any little slivers close to the edge where you might get your paint over, again, you can just use that transfer tape to protect your wood. And with pine as well, and in this one, I can feel little ridges in the wood. So you want to just keep that in mind. Maybe I could have sanded it a little bit more, but that's super important in the application process, because if I go to apply too much paint on my stencil, then that paint will bleed through under. So again, we want to try to avoid that. Go. So there's our little birthday cake. This is part of our birthday tiered tray stencil. So again, you can paint those in so many different color combinations. When you're choosing your paint colors, you do want to make sure that you're choosing contrasting colors, light on black, black on white. As you can see, this one I think I'm going to choose white. So it's revealing the background color. Where the void is now is where I'm going to paint. And so I already have paint on my brush, and there's actually quite a lot of paint on there. Less is best. Less is best always. So I can stipple with that. It's pretty dry, actually. You want a dry brush, but again, you want to make sure that you wipe off all of the excess paint so that there's no drip marks. Now I'm using our 1-inch brushes. The same would apply with a foam brush. And then if you don't trust yourself, if you think you have too much paint, you can use a paper towel and you can blot it off. That's totally up to you. And again, you're gonna do one really light coat. Again, that's a lot of paint. So I'm hoping that that's not too much paint. That second coat that I do, I'm not gonna apply any more paint because there's lots. Actually, you know what? I am going to use my brush and I'm gonna use fresh squeezed. Again, super, super light. You hardly use any paint at all. And you might not get perfect coverage the first time, but that's okay. Let's see, there we go. So that is Elizabeth saying, thank you so much, needed this video, have butchered a stencil before. You know what, we've all done it. Sometimes it's either we're in a rush or we're not paying attention to the details of the stencils. So that was like super light application, and I'm gonna use a different brush. And this, yeah, that's too dry. So you can have too little paint as well. We want that happy medium. So I'm going to again blot off, and there we go. Super, super light. On some of the larger projects, I actually find that swirling with your brush can work too. Now these are not specifically stencil brushes, but I'm not fussing with it too much. I'm just leaving with it. As you can see, it's super, super light, hardly any paint at all. And so you can see with these little 1/2 ounce paints, they really do go a long way. So this is a paintbrush that has been well loved. So you can see that these brushes work a really long time. And I actually think that we've given this one a haircut. So sometimes the fibers can roll out a little bit. Look at that. I can't believe actually we still have that. But I'm gonna use this. This is actually amazing. If you wash your brushes and don't let the paint dry off on your paintbrush, you can see that they are amazing for multiple uses. Please do not throw these away after the first use. So again, super, super light. It's like a dry brush technique. Now I've applied this stencil here on pine with the stained background. So I'm gonna use black, and again, super, super light. Now black, you're gonna have, it's got less coverage than the white, but on that first coat, again, I just want it super, super light. I wanna avoid any paint bleed. So there's like hardly any extra paint, and I hope you guys can see that well. No drip marks, do not over apply the paint. This is one of the biggest tips with stenciling so that your stencil has a clean finish. And look at that, now we get to watch paint dry. So exciting, you guys. This is acrylic paint, so it does dry really fast. Now what you want to make sure of is after you've base coated, now I should have showed you that before I applied my stencil, I did make sure that it was sanded smooth. And again, this sandpaper lasts forever. It lasts for multiple projects. And again, it doesn't matter what colors you're painting with and sanding, you can use the same piece of sandpaper. Some people are hesitant to sand different colors with your sandpaper, but it actually doesn't really affect the paint at all. It's just dust. So that's super smooth to the touch. So again, make sure that your surface is really smooth before you apply your stencil. And that one's gonna say, when life gives you lemons. So that one's already dry to the touch. I always put 2 coats on. If you are working on stain and you want that lighter look, you can definitely just go with 1 coat. I do 2 coats always because I figure if you do 2 coats and then remove the stencil and you want less paint, you can always distress and sand after, but you can't reapply the stencil and add another coat. So again, super, super light. And I probably didn't even have to apply more paint. Okay. Super, super light. And again, this is a water-based acrylic paint. Let me see, it's hard to work backwards, you guys. That's a second coat, so you can see the difference of what 2 coats can make. And let's see, I totally did not have to apply more paint. You see that? That's the difference, 1 coat versus 2 coats. Let's see, did I get? Super dry brush, again. There we go. And you know, everyone has their own techniques that they have, but this is what we found useful. 2 really light coats, I'm gonna wait for that to dry. And this is the benefit of doing multiple things all at once, is you can be working on one side while the other one is drying. So again, super, super light. I didn't apply any more paint on my brush, so I hope you notice that. That's how little paint you really need. Such good coverage, you guys. And the black, yeah, I could use more paint. So I'm gonna add more paint. So I'm gonna add a second coat. And the one tool I forgot to bring to my table, so I'm actually just gonna go get it, are my weeding tools. So once this is dry, you see that second coat. Now you can see I'm kind of going back and forth. Now, if you're watching videos from other companies, sometimes they'll show you how to stipple, which is that up and down dabbing motion. I prefer to do the back and forth or the swirling just because I don't want that textured look of that stipple that kind of looks like textured ceiling. So I want to avoid that. I like the nice smooth lines. So I am just gonna go grab my tools. Here we go. And again, this is our weeding tool set. Super, super good, sharp, sturdy tool. which could be very dangerous because it's got that sharp point on it. But again, it is perfect for picking off these vinyl stencils. So I always wait till it's completely dry before I pull it off. If it comes off on your finger, I mean, that's the question, right? They're like, is the paint dry? How do you know the paint is dry? Well, when you touch it and it doesn't get on your fingers anymore, then it's dry to the touch, enough for you to remove your stencil. Now with the base coats, before you apply, you want to make sure that it's more than just dry to the touch, because what will happen is the vinyl will peel off the paint, and we want to avoid that. So again, making sure it's dry. All of this paint is a matte finish, so it doesn't have a glossy or a satin sheen at all to it, and I love that matte look. So that is it. I'm going to clean my area here a little bit. Put my lids back on my paint. And again, these paints do go a long way. Okay, so in a lot of our kits, we give you a toothpick. That toothpick again is great for one-time use, but if you're really invested in doing more projects than one, the weeding kit is a great investment. And we have a section on our website called Create Everyday Collection under themes, and that's where you would find that. You could search it as well. So this vinyl is one-time use. Once you start peeling it off, all of the centers of your letters are just gonna stay on your wood. So that is not an error. That is actually just the vinyl staying on your wood. I'm gonna use my picking tool, and I usually grab the one corner which is the skinniest, and I use this tool. Isn't that super sweet? I love the black on the gray, super crisp lines. I don't know if that's, you can see that. All you need is love. Okay, and on this one here too. Now this is on the pine. It just, like, look at that, there's no weeding involved. I love designs like that. Not often does that happen. So that ombre look with a solid color on the top is a super fun look. But I think everything looks great. So who am I to say? Again, I'm so glad that I put that transfer tape on because I did get paint all over it. So that protected the wood. And this one is going to be trickier because it has all of that script lettering with all the stencils. Oh my goodness. So you get to watch me try to figure this out. Now with the toothpick, you can see that you can just put that toothpick underneath. You can lift as much as you can with your fingers. But again, for ease, I'm gonna just use my picking tool. And I may have done this once or twice before, so if you're new at this, please take your time. Again, I don't want you to gouge the wood. I want you just to use that tip just right underneath the sharpest point of your stencil. Pick all of the insides. Look at that. Super crisp and clean, you guys. In the tiered tray kit, it also comes with string, so you can tie that on the end. And on this one, I'm just gonna loop it around. Which way is it? There you have it. You can use your sandpaper, you can distress the edges, oops, even more if you want. And I do those final touches at the end. Let's see. There you have it. So a little bit of distressing, you can see that. So again, I hope you guys found this useful. Those are some tips and tricks on how to stencil to get your clean lines. So tomorrow I'm going to finish off this tier tray before I go live again, and I'm going to show you some different types of ways so that you can display your tier tray pieces, and there's some DIY projects there as well. So stay tuned. I will be live tomorrow, and if you wanted to follow us, you'll get notification, and I hope you catch the replay. Take care. Bye.